a private sector, if you want to call it that, where over $5 billion would have been in what is called excess liquidity in the banks of the country, whether it be partially or wholly public owned or privately owned. We're going to look at that as well tonight. Well, not tonight, but today, this morning. But tonight, of course, we'll continue on the corridor transformation to look at that. But before we go there, maybe the realities are in Trinidad and Tobago today. And all indicators are that it is not good, it is not nice, it is not salubrious, it is not befitting where Trinidad and Tobago ought to be at this point in time. So let us not fool ourselves. And of course, our Sunday broadcast is designed to make certain that the reality of Trinidad and Tobago continues, even though we are solution-oriented. And that is where we would want to go on a Sunday morning. Don't forget, of course, tonight we continue with the solid and hardcore, and we'll have some adjustments to make, programming adjustments, because for the overall, of course, benefit as far as the progenitor or the originator or the founder of this very, what I consider to be significant in Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time, information, should I say, saturated, but nonetheless sharing so that we understand the circumstances of Trinidad and Tobago much better. But I want to say that are we in a situation where cash is scarce? Is it that the government at minimum has a cash flow problem? Is it that we have not been able to invest in such a way so as to meet our minimum and, of course, something to put away for the rainy day? Maybe some may say all of the above. But I want you to, of course, note that salaries are in a tardy way being paid, public salaries, public services, and those who engage the state to provide services from the private sector are not being paid according to the schedule or the schedule that would have been agreed upon. And of course, whether you want to call them make-work programs or you want to call it a social welfare delivery initiatives, whether it be CPEP, URP, and others, whether it be stipend as far as YTEP is concerned, and of course, the program that government over the years have implemented on the job training, or whether it be delivery from as far as the pensioners are concerned, people with, of course, that are differently able, those persons who cannot, of course, fend for themselves because of physical and mental disabilities. Why are they so regularly not getting their established due as agreed upon and has been established by tradition and by administrative execution in recent times? Why? We're going to explore that and, of course, look at the whole question of the fact that in 2015, the government of the day would have benefited from, would have acquired, would have inherited over $5 billion in the Heritage and Civilization Fund, over $10 billion in reserves, and an economy, a private sector, if you want to call it that, where over $5 billion would have been in what is called excess liquidity in the banks of the country, whether it be partially or wholly public owned or privately owned. We're going to look at that as well tonight. Well, not tonight, but today, this morning. But tonight, of course, we'll continue on the corridor transformation to look at that. But before we go there, maybe an appropriate piece of music will, of course, set the tone.
To be a millionaire or some kind of petty bourgeoisie anytime you live in here in this country. You've got to be in skullduggery, making you money illicitly to live like somebody in this country. It's outrageous and insane.
Is this true or not? Is it that we have to be able to know someone in order, of course, to survive in this country? Well, it is, the evidence is increasingly, of course, in favor of that particular despicable condition, where it's not meritocracy, but it is about, of course, who you know. That is dangerous.
At last, here in Trinidad, we see capitalism gone mad. It's sad. Because to do capitalism gone mad. To provide for your family today on your present salary is an impossibility in this country. So many bills to pay, there is no conceivable way to save for a rainy day in this country. Our voraciousness, to be precise, is why every damn thing so overpriced. Big business making everybody feel government give them an open license to steal.
Let's pause there. Government give them an open license to steal. I suppose it could only be the privileged and those who are engaged in what we usually would call nepotism, cronyism, and of course the ability to not only access those who have the authority consequential of elections and government. The camera is here. Dr. Khalid, camera is here. Yes. Yes. So let us be real. And let us not, of course, fool ourselves. And let us get down, of course, to the issues of the day. That being as it may, of course, as you know, Dr. Khalid will join me every Sunday, preferably. Sometimes, of course, we are a bit unable to meet that commitment, but by and large, we are committed to national development, community development, family development, and of course, individual development. That being as may, let me introduce, of course, Dr. Khalid immediately. Maybe you could come a little forward, Dr. Khalid, closer to the mic, so to speak, and maybe, yeah, right, good. Right. And, well, of course, good morning to you, and welcome once again. Tell us.
It's always a pleasure, Lennox. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Well, of course, I normally like to start by asking you how has been your weekend so far, and I know you will tell me something of a national and community nature, and that's why, of course, I feel committed to always ask that question, because you're going to give us something new, and you're going to give us the latest development that is taken, that you, in your view, is taking place.
Yeah, well, what it is that we are for development.
Yes.
Right. So yes, you might have a little thing here or there, but the main thing is that the center we going all right.
Oh, all right, you could.
We're doing all right, and we have our classes and things like that. We're now considering bringing in other programs, because not every young man and woman into academics. So we want to have like trade and training and considering sports, a whole mix there.
Whole mix, yes. All right. Well, you couldn't ask for anything more or less, especially from individual perspective, because I want to, in terms of the aspect of solutions, I want to get into the personal commitment, the kind of character, and character here means people's sense of right and wrong and commitment and so on, and personality, of course, so how people perceive you, whether you're a hostile individual, whether you are rambunctious, obnoxious, rapscallion, you know, all of those are part and parcel of the mix as far as the personality is concerned. But I thought we should be able to tell people that whilst we accept that all persons are not cut out to be as altruistic and as humanistic as in terms of projecting their ability to improve the quality of life and standard of living, but whilst all people are not so, but all people are invariably want to receive a good quality of life and standard of living. Would you agree with that?
100%.
100%, right. So it is against that background, but before we go there, I know that you may want to have your own introduction in terms of what you want to discuss this morning. So maybe we can start there, and then, of course, we could go into what it takes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what it takes for somebody to, he or she may be comfortable on her own, not having to interfere or to focus on the concerns of what happening is out there on the streets, whether it's youth delinquency, whether children not performing well in school, or whether, of course, parents are not taking on their responsibilities as they ought to, whether there are people who are living in squalor and, of course, inhospitable conditions that in itself affecting, of course, family life, the role of the government, and whether or not it is sufficiently efficacious, or whether or not it is simply delinquent, or whether or not it really doesn't care, and therefore, of course, the resources that are reposed with the state are not being used to facilitate and to ameliorate and to improve the circumstances of the country. So it's a wide range of issues that such persons take on, even without the cloak or the, should I say, the approbation or the support of the state. Right. What it takes for such an individual, firstly, to make that decision, and then, of course, consistently demonstrate, as you have been doing in your own community, of course, having regard to all of the variables, all of the shenanigans, all of the opposition, all of the lack of support, and, of course, there must be some kind of support as well. But I want to focus on the lack of support, because it takes such a strong person in order to achieve those personal objectives, because it has to be personal.
Right. Well, okay. With me, it take growing up in a strong family.
Okay.
A big family of people care and think in a certain way.
Okay.
You know, my father was like close to white. I used to call him half a white man.
Half a white. All right, yeah.
And it used to piss him off. But he was a black nationalist mentally.
Okay, mentally. Okay.
And it take a condition where I just take it.
Yes, of course, as we always say, don't mind the telephone and so on. We have a full, we have a commitment outside of this program, so therefore we normally would keep in the picture.
I good, Margot.
Yeah.
All right.
So sometimes we have calls right here. We have to work at the same time whilst we are, of course, bringing these. So we like to keep it live and real. So don't be surprised if I get a call and have to talk on the phone.
I will call you back on a program now, but I'll call you back in about half an hour time. All right. Yeah.
So you see, we see this as a work in progress, and therefore our work is never done. People will access us. In fact, before I came here this morning, I had a conversation with several persons, and after the program, I have to go and meet them, and it will take me as far as Brazil, in the east, or in the east central, if you want to call it that, of Trinidad, in order to look at some lands that, of course, a senior citizen wants to, of course, leave for his children, and he wants me to, of course, be a witness in the whole process. So there we have it. Of course, Dr. Khalid, he just got a call, for example, before we came here. We saw, people of, let's say, similar age, alignment, and last night, of course, they had a very, what I consider to be, sociable event, or a social event, where the community came together, etc. And then he has to be here this morning. The point I'm making is lay the foundation for the limitless and diverse amount of work that such a person who has taken on the role of the responsibility of doing what maybe state agencies should be doing at the task, even though without the support, as I say, or the cloak of the resources that the state would have had, whose responsibility it would have been to treat with this matter. Dr. Khalid, you could continue now that that you're off the phone.
Just get bad news.
You got a bad news?
Yeah,
Wow.
My boy Romo dead.
Romo?
Barrow. Romo Barrow.
Oh, Barrow. Oh,
that's the one who helped my Billy Community Center, man.
Oh, I see.
That's the engineer when people didn't want to come.
Yeah.
He come and he work for less.
All right. Okay.
Wife now called.
All right. So people, there you have it. You have the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and of course, and you have to be a strong person, Dr. Khalid, to really absorb that. And I mean, and in the context that we are all human beings, have emotions. Yeah. Some may be expressed in ways that others may feel differently about, and in the same circumstance may express their emotions differently. Yeah. But the fact about it is that we are human beings, and therefore, well, of course, let us convey our condolences one time to, of course, the bereaved family of a member of the community.
The Barrow family. Actually, he's from Caranage.
Caranage, I see.
Barrow, but he's another down-to-earth guy, just like my pops.
Right.
You know, he grew up a certain way, went England, London University, study engineering and things, and he come back and he committed himself to developing his area.
Right.
You know, along that line. You know, we have a group of us who were fortunate enough to get a good education, but we, like you, dedicate ourselves to develop our surrounding because we are not satisfied and comfortable with us alone. See, that's the thing in this country, us alone.
Yes.
I have this, and I and my children live happy, and everybody else suffer.
To hell with the rest.
To hell with the rest.
In essence, because that is a statement that one could glean, one could conclude from, of course, the persons who would have gotten the opportunity, more than those who would have made the commitment, and not, of course, fulfilling that role that is expected of them. And we will have to extend the argument or the discussion to the kind of chaos that, and chaos in the context that either you want to call it discrimination or inequitable distribution because you want more than your fair share, and you, in other words, depriving others of that which they ought rightly to get, but in your possession, and you refuse, of course, to do what is required.
Well, you're correct. You're correct. And you know, you and I make that whole connection to government.
Yes.
You know, I was listening to you just now when you was talking about the problem in Trinidad is not caused by a lack of funds.
That's right.
The problem in Trinidad is caused by a lack of caring.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right.
All right. Because we have people in office who are not really into the people.
Right.
What they know is that when it's time for election, they could use the people and they will give them a little thing and make promises to pass through the army and give this and that. And they know very well that money is not touching the ground.
Wait, or two.
Yes. So we need people who will come up with programs that the average man and woman and little boy and girl will be able to get a better life, and therefore the society will head in the right direction. Because I can remember a time growing up as a Trinidadian, and I used to be proud because the whole Caribbean wanted us to lead them.
That's right.
The Caribbean right now not interested in that. They laughing at us. They say, we look at all you this and that and all that. You think what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that is where the change have to come. And sometimes people angry when you talk about a change of government.
Yes.
But it have to go there, Lennox.
Yes.
It have to go to people who's caring. It has nothing to do with no texture, hair, and color skin, you know. It has to do with caring. If I'm making sense, tell me.
Of course you are. I always do. I will never challenge whether what you have to say makes sense or not. There's always, of course, and in fact, it appeals or applies to common sense as well.
Yeah.
Because I've often said that it appears that those who are in office and have the responsibility of nurturing and carrying the burden of state responsibility, they seem to be lacking, of course, common sense.
Yeah.
Because common sense will tell you that you cannot take all for yourself, or all for yourself here doesn't mean personally. It also means family, friends, acquaintances, and party hacks, etc. And who you prefer and rather, as opposed, of course, to qualified, distinguished, but more importantly, persons who really are in need, whether abject or otherwise, or being part of the middle or should I say, I don't like to say lower class, but certainly the working class in the society. So it will be right. It will be right for you to make, of course, those statements and or descriptions based on your attempt to distinguish and to share with the population, of course, the notion that you have as to how to carry the country forward. So if people who are in authority fail to deliver, then we need to say that. They themselves don't like us to say it because they believe that either naively, or should I say specifically or intentionally, they know they are doing wrong, but want you, of course, to take that wrong and say that they are doing right. We cannot do that. I want to hear your views on it.
No, nobody correct. You're correct. Right now, there always come, let me put it this way, there always come a time when you have to call a spade and stop playing games.
Right.
Don't call a spade a fork.
Good.
A spade is not a fork. A spade is not a spoon.
Right.
If you call it a shovel, okay, it's another fork. But a spade is a spade.
Right.
And that.
Okay, let's go straight like. President morning. Welcome to the morning program of the Corridor Transformation.
Yes, Lennox Smith, pleasant good morning to you and your guests this morning.
Yes.
Well, I take in your program here this morning, and we're talking about development and stuff.
Yes.
And I go back in my memory and I say, but wait, I really can understand who it is these people vote for to run this country now. The MP for Point Fortin, and this is something that is always stressed on. When this guy was mayor, he came in our committee center in 2020 and was talking about the development at Point Fortin, what they want to do and this and that. And when the time comes to ask if anybody have any question or concern about how this is going to develop the area. So when my turn comes, I raise up my hand and I say, hey, what's going on, Mr. Mayor? I say, I have something on my chest and I need to get it off my chest. I say, here, what's going on? I say, over 50 years ago, Point Porter had 3 cinemas. I say we in 2020, we don't have 1 cinema. I say, but anyhow, I say that spot will all allocate to build the fire station. I say 5 years before that, I've been going to the corporation to find out how it is the borough could be able to.
And the, should I say, the government officials.
A creature of those who want to stay in office.
Exactly, Len.
Okay.
Len, you have 15 months before election.
Right.
They have already indicated to us that they have some money to give to the army.
Yes. 100 million.
Okay.
Yes.
That money is going to touch the ground. When that money touch the ground, greed gone mad. Agreed?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Because there has been so much deprivation.
Good.
But there's going to be fight over it as well.
Well, fight over it, but also political support. There's a questioning of the political support for them.
You're talking about wetting the ground.
Wetting the ground.
Wetting the ground.
Yes.
Whilst, of course, there may be some conflicts, but that is tolerable.
Yes.
Because the wetting the ground, the fertilization of the ground benefits, of course, those who have offered that overture, the 100 million.
And where you think that 100 million going to? Have until Caranage, throughout the East-West corridor. And here we go, still dividing. My party fighting, Diego Martin, your party fighting St. Joseph, somebody else party fighting in Tanapuna, and each of us taking votes from each other.
So this unity you're speaking of, because there's a process to achieve political, or should I say, governance.
Right.
All right. And so that, is it that there's, at least from what I'm gathering from you, that there are 2 levels of coming together. The people themselves in the masses, 1.5 million must come together, but you have a mechanism in order to topple or to displace this system, and that is you have a party structure, a party system that says that if your party contests a particular election, there are rules and regulations. You can now be qualified. Without a ticket, you don't have a chance.
Right.
So you must now be, you can now be qualified because you went through the system in order to get into parliament, so as to change the system. So are you saying then that the second level or tier of cooperation are those political entities that must now come together in order, of course, to rectify ultimately and defeat what is purported now to be government?
So we come in together,
yes,
and we discussing among ourselves what type of political, by the ballot, support we need to give to the party that we see is the better one in our view. Right? To win the election from the PNM. And what they're lacking is support within the East-West corridor. And since that is the case, then we do that. We come together, and of course we will have negotiation with them. Look, we giving you our support A, B, and C, and what that. Not getting into the details. This is it. But the first conversation is among those of us who are not supporting the PNM to come together and create a mass. I know that making sense to you.
No, I just wanted for clarity and to make certain that we are all on the same page. And so I thought I should make that interjection so that that clarity, that pellucidness is achieved. You did mention to me that on the 6th, which is I think tomorrow, the UNC is having another.
They were supposed to, but they'll have to get back to me to let me know when.
Okay.
Because the leader decided to postpone it because they wanted to give the alderman more time
to organize himself in order to.
But the meeting definitely will happen.
Okay, the major party of which you speak, and let's face it, that is not even an elephant in the room. The fact is that everybody knows that is the UNC you're talking.
And Kamala Prasad
and as the leader, right? And therefore, all the other what I consider to be satellites
Yeah.
that are lurking, but of course are incapable of meeting the standard to become this huge body, this huge giant, this huge monolithic that of course the UNC is. They must now of course be able to negotiate and add more to this monolithic, add more to this juggernaut in order of course to make certain that what is happening and purporting to be government does not continue.
We negotiating among ourselves.
So the satellites negotiate among themselves.
That is it. You sit down and you discuss.
Right, okay.
We go in a closed room, nobody know what we discussing.
Right.
And of course it might be heated. Lennox, where you think so and so and so. No. At the end of the day,
yes,
before we come out of that room, there must be a solution.
A solution, okay. Because the solution oriented, the fact of the matter is that some say the devil is in the details. The fact is that there could be no devil here. No. There must be, of course, the details known to all, so that agendas are easily snuffed out, smelt out, eliminated, and so what you have is a pure arrangement to now negotiate with, of course, that monolithic, political monolithic called the UNC and Kamala Prasad.
Yes, so we sit down and we discuss and we say so, and then we say, okay, we approach them.
Right.
So we're talking about 15 months before the election. So I really talking about, for the most, 5.
Okay,
months.
Great. Good, yeah. You have a window of 5 months.
Of course.
To settle and to consolidate.
It's sensible men and women. You can't take 15 months to think because you have to prepare yourself.
Right.
So you come together and you say, this is what we want to do. And this is how we do it.
Right.
Rather than people ambitious as we are, you go and you say, okay, I fight in St. Joseph, UNC fights St. Joseph, another party fights St. Joseph. Guess who win in Lennox? PNM. Because we taking votes from each other.
Yes.
The last election in St. Joseph, how much did PNM win by? About 900 votes, right?
Yeah.
Sure is not 1,000.
Yes.
All right. So you win by 1,000. Right. And I know the UNC had a candidate there. I know you had another candidate there.
Yes.
So that means votes were split.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? And
when you look at both of them, the split contribution, if they were together, would have given, of course, the UNC the edge, or the opponents to the PNM the edge.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Practical one. In my area, you know where is my area, right? Local election. The candidate who I manage, right? He was able to get close to 800 plus votes. The candidate that won, without calling him, he won by 1,075 votes. The other candidate, right? She got 350 votes.
That is not a PNM.
She's not a PNM.
It's part of the opposing forces to the PNM. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So she got 350. You know what I'm saying? Here my candidate got 800 something. And the other guy, he won by 1,000 about either 50 votes or 75 votes.
So it means that when you put both of the opposition together, at least it'll be, the gap would have been tremendously narrowed, or they could have secured victory.
Victory! Because most of the people who ain't vote for the PS.
Yes.
For nobody else.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So when they vote against them, that 350 votes is people, and some of them I know, not vote.
Not here. Yeah. All right.
So this is the logic that I'm going on.
No, but well, it makes sense. Coming together is a formidable exercise, and I want to maybe emphasize what you're saying by recent development that occurred in the Parliament.
Right.
And then, of course, you'll give me your own assessment at the same time.
Right.
Rambali, the parliamentary representative for Shogunas West, raised to make a contribution to a debate in the parliament. And the PNM side was thumping their desk profusely and vehemently, and I should say with a high degree of reverberation. That's how hard they determined this. And I wondered why they were doing that. And then, of course, I saw participating in it, of course, was Imbert, the usually acting prime minister, and everybody else. I cannot confirm that Rowley was thumping his desk, but I will not be surprised if it is that all of them were doing that simultaneously, but almost spontaneously. And then I realized that the PNM do not give opposition spokespersons or opposition presenters any appreciation. Why? And then it dawned on me that because Rambali, represents a divisive element that would, of course, if given any credence, represent a reduction in the opposition. Because, of course, he is saying that the election should be called now, and that, of course, questioning the leadership of the present leader of the UNC, etc. And they were thumping their desk. I want you to speak to that because it's contrary to what you are advocating. Because there should be within the organizations themselves that monolithic. There must be unity as well.
Yeah, but yes, Rambali is one of them. I didn't want to call name Rambali. And you see the other four.
The other four. Yes.
The other four. Yes, you're educated. Yes, you have your degree or degrees. You're just making sense politically. Politically, in my opinion, you're irrelevant right now.
All right.
You're not making any sense. These guys, in my opinion, they are campaigners for the PNM.
Right.
I'm not going to stoop and say they're taking money, and I don't know, I'm not going to slander their character in that. Because he apparently is a money man, so he don't need no money. What he needs is political support.
Right.
He find himself in the same situation, right, where people criticizing him as a non-performer as they were criticizing Gypsy.
Right.
He and his team was criticizing Gypsy in Mayaro. Rambali in Shogunas.
Yes.
Right. But the guy from Mayaro.
Oh, the Russian Parry.
Parry and they were criticizing because he's in that side.
Gypsy. Yeah, because Gypsy came from, as far as his political bucket drop in his case concerned, he's a Mayaro man.
Mayaro man.
Yes.
And they were saying that he's not a non-performer, you don't treat the people well. What goes around comes around.
Right.
Now people accusing him of the same thing.
Right.
Except for the little clique that he has supporting him.
Right.
So now he find himself in that situation, and nobody told me, but I'm convinced that he and these others cannot go back there. So they know for a fact they're not going to get a seat.
Yes.
So they're playing the fool.
Right.
That's the reality. And what I want people to understand, you see, when you win government, right?
Yeah.
When you win government, you have a whole set of opportunities. So if Lennox Smith or Carly didn't get a seat, opportunities. Work with your bloody party. It have a lot of these guys in men and women. Ain't got no seat but they and board, chairman about here, some of them is senator, minister, this and that. Work with your party because you have one objective. You understand what I said? Go ahead.
But let me ask you something. The argument is that they perceive that there will be no election. The argument is that suggesting that there is no election internally. And of course, there's some, I think, or indirect reference to the leadership of the party, Kamala Prasad Bisesa in particular. The party clearly has not responded by some awards ceremony. They have gone back, of course, into the default position of Monday night. They have, of course, initiated nominations. I don't think they have started screening as yet. I would be surprised. But by any objective observer, we think that those arguments that the five advance eventually are crucial and irrelevant. I, for example, can see that I will be talking about an election and questioning the credibility for the term as to whether these elections will be held, but that are to come.
Because
why would you sound so silly? Why would you sound foolish? Why would you sound so ludicrous?
Lennox, when you look at all the arguments of the opposition from day one,
yes.
I mean, let's take it away from advocate for unity.
Unity, yes, I can confirm that.
Right, through the years.
Yes.
Since we were pretty young, I was talking that all the time. Trinidad, in my opinion,
let's go straight to the line. A pleasant good morning. Welcome to the Corridor Transformation. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Lennox.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, morning. Two things.
Yes.
I would have asked you some weeks ago for you to do some investigation into the Prime Minister's travel to the United States to collect his honorary doctorate.
Yes.
Because there were accusations swirling that he would have used, it was purported that he would have used taxpayers' money. The allegations basically to travel there.
But that has been confirmed. So it's no longer an allegation. Right.
So that confirmed. Yeah. So how come that is not an issue? Why is the media, and you see, listen, when you consider how this country does work, the part of the problem why this country is the way that it is because the media houses and the media fraternity really has lost its way. And that is primarily because in many instances, the government would be funding them and paying them for ads. So they're not really doing the things that they need to do. I mean, that is a serious allegation.
Yes.
That is a serious allegation. The Prime Minister going to the States to collect an honorary doctorate is not a doctorate on the office of the Prime Minister. It is a doctorate on the Prime Minister, his person himself. And therefore, if that is the case, then he needed to spend his money and go and collect his doctorate, not taxpayers' money, right? That is one. The second thing deals with this whole talk of constitutional reform.
Yes.
Right? I think that is something that really is needed. However, the directions that the government want to go with it seems to be evading the most pointed issues and looking to address issues that is where I consider to be low offense issues. For instance, there are three areas that I think that should be really looked at in depthly. And if it is that those three areas are not addressed, I don't want to hear anything. And those are one, the office of the president. I think we have a choice with that to do two things. It is either we disband it totally and just have one prime minister or one president, or if we continue, that we change how the person is elected. That is one, they must be elected and not selected, as it's been bandied about, right? And they must have more power to be able to hold people to account. That is one.
Yes.
Second to that is the office of the Attorney General. That office needs to be removed from under the ambit of a political party. Because as we have seen recently, the Attorney General basically flouting regulations to ensure that the political party that they represent doesn't look bad or is not held to account. Right? So that is something that we really need to look at. That post of Attorney General is a critical post. And we need to look at that. And last but not least, the office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's office, and I'm not talking about this Prime Minister, I'm talking about the office.
Yes.
Use too much power in Trinidad and Tobago. Because as it stands, when they are accused of doing wrong, nobody seems to be able to hold the person to account. There must be some mechanism built into that post where if it is deemed that the Prime Minister would have heard, that they can be held to account by some mechanism, right? Yeah. Thank you very much, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Khalid, of course, you heard the caller. He was concerned about constitutional reform, but he started off by saying that a trip to the United States to receive an honorary doctorate, and he was concerned that taxpayers' monies would have been used to deal with what essentially is a private matter, because if he's getting a doctorate, it's not because he was prime minister, but because, of course, of his academic achievements in the past, and that would have been predating the prime ministerial position. And even if, of course, he got his doctorate, the current prime minister, talking about Rowley, whilst he was prime minister, that too should be seen as a private occasion, a private agenda, because that's what he wants for him, but it has nothing to do with the country and the benefits. But I told him that, yes, I confirmed that it was taxpayers' money that was used, but because he asked me something about it. But more recently, at the opening of the library, of course, I consider to be that is redundant to that kind of brick and mortar facility, the size and the cost that was expended in the Martin, unnecessary, and better you use money to provide free internet access to all of the Martin. That would have been better, just to have regard, of course, to the efficaciousness of the devices and programs and the internet, of course, library plus, and anything you want books wise, you can get it on the why would you want to invest in physical thing. And of course, my understanding is from our money, nobody really goes there what's there anyway, because they want what they do. But I still want to say that the same professor on who's retirement probably last year of offering doctorate that is usually referred to as honorary doctorate, is actually a Martin, and the same guy that was given the highest national award in the country, the Trinity Plus, and it appears there's more reciprocation rather than really a genuine.
Finance Minister Colm Imbert announced in Parliament that Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited, which is wholly owned by the Oilfields Workers Trade Union, was chosen as the preferred bidder. Finance Minister assured the decision was made in the best interest of the country.
The refinery has a profound effect on the GDP of Trinidad and Tobago. The refinery production has a profound effect on our national GDP. And therefore, our primary focus is to get it up and running as quickly as possible.
Finance Minister Colm Imbert justifies the selection of Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited, wholly owned by the OWTU, as the preferred bidder for the sale of the Petrotrin refinery. Minister Imbert said the capability to restart the refinery was one of the main considerations in choosing a buyer. Of the initial 77 bids made to government, the list later narrowed down to 8, then 5, and lastly 3 companies: Patriotic Energies, Beowulf Energy, and Clash. The Finance Minister said the bid put forward by Patriotic Energies was most appealing, with a proposal made to restart operations within 12 months.
And of the 3, the entity that offered the most significant sum, as you've already heard, was Patriotic, who offered $700 million. Clash offered nothing, and Beowulf only offered $42,000 per month, which works out at $7.5 million.
Responding to those wary that the new arrangement, once completed, would face the same challenges as the previous incarnation, Minister Imbert said that's a misconception.
A lot of people have asked the question as to if the refinery was so unprofitable over the years, why should anybody believe that a new entity can make it profitable? And there's a simple answer to that. The refinery is saddled with huge debt, billions of dollars of debt. Any person taking it over now will not have to carry that debt.
When the sale of Petrotrin's refinery is finalized, the selected bidder, Patriotic Technologies Company Limited, will be subjected to the standard taxation for the energy sector in accordance with the law. As Finance Minister Colm Imbert explained during a press conference on Wednesday, government expects to earn the majority of its revenue from the company through other media.
We expect to get revenue from the economic activity that is created by the startup of the refinery, from income tax, from value-added tax, from the spin-off multiply effect in the communities around the refinery, and from the payments when they start to pay us.
And Energy Minister Franklin Can has assured the OWTU won the refinery bid fair and square. He was speaking at the opening of the NP service station on the highway in El Socorro on Wednesday.
It was an international call for request for proposal. It was evaluated by a multidisciplinary high-level team. It boiled down to 3 people, 3 companies with binding bids, and Patriotic, through a transparent process, has been determined to be the preferred bidder.
He called on the public to stop making issues with the deal, as the refinery will be beneficial to the country.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley maintains the restructuring of Petrotrin was the only move to save this country from having to face the dire consequences of poor decision-making.
In restructuring it, we saved ourselves a downgrade and possibly a huge devaluation of our currency. Because August 2018, the Minister of Finance had to find a check for $850 million US.
Dr. Rowley notes this was repayment for a number of loans which had been taken by the energy company.
Service that $850 million US debt. We would have ended up in an IMF program. We would have ended up with a devaluation of the currency, and we would have ended up with a quality of life in this country that we had not anticipated in any small measure.
The Prime Minister said Petrotrin could not pay the money, but after the restructuring, Heritage is able to make the repayments.
We were refining other people's oil, buying it at over 100,000 barrels per day, refining it in our refinery, guaranteed to lose between $7 and $15 a barrel. And the projections for the 5-year period in front of us, 2018 going forward, was for a guaranteed minimum loss of $5 billion.
When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange. When the refinery was being operated, they earned enough foreign exchange from sales, so that they earned more foreign exchange from the sales of refined products, from fuel, from gasoline and diesel, than it cost them to purchase the crude to put through the refinery. So they were net foreign exchange. When the refinery was being operated, they earned enough foreign exchange from sales, so that they earned more foreign exchange from the sales of refined products, from fuel, from gasoline and diesel, than it cost them. So they were net foreign exchange. When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange.
We were refining other people's oil, buying it at over 100,000 barrels per day, refining it in our refinery, guaranteed to lose between $7 and $15 a barrel.
When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange.
So when people talk about Petrotrin bringing in US dollars, that is a completely false narrative. It was not a net earner of foreign exchange. It was draining the country's reserve.
When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange.
My name is Gary Aboud. I am the Corporate Secretary of Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, Trinidad and Tobago. We went under the Freedom of Information to the Ministry of Energy, and we got the exact data. For 4 years, Petrotrin did not rely on government subventions. So 2016, 17, 18, Petrotrin were not given 1 penny from central government. But yet the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet kept speaking about Petrotrin like that they were going to sing the national economy. saying that if they were kept going, they would lose $2 billion a year.
So when people talk about Petrotrin bringing in US dollars, that is a completely false narrative. It was not a net earner of foreign exchange. It was draining the country's reserve.
When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange.
When you are lied to and told that Petrotrin is sinking the economy, when for 3 consecutive years, not a penny was paid in subventions, how do you feel?
In restructuring it, we saved ourselves a downgrade and possibly a huge devaluation of our currency. Because August 2018, the Minister of Finance had to find a check for $850 million US.
But then, if that were true and Dr. Rowley's statements were genuine, then why is there no evidence of any subvention to keep the company afloat in 2016, 17, and 18? And when they were paid in 2019, $1.2 billion from the Ministry of Finance, that was specifically to pay severance. So, are we being run by a government with integrity? Is the public interest being served by officers duly elected who are concerned about the welfare of the least privileged, or are they ambitiously seeking to become the most privileged? These are serious questions. When you are lied to and have to pay triple for the price of oil and gas, when we had a company that could have produced and exported and kept our economy on of robust and vibrant statures, how do you feel? When you see a private company that is secret, that no one knows who the owners are, making $400 and $500 million a year, selling oil and gas to ships, profits that should have been going to the national treasury, how do you feel? When the application for that company was made 6 months before Petrotrin closed, when the applicants, Dr. Rowley's close friend, would not have known or should not have known of the planned closure of Petrotrin. Beg you to answer in your heart and in your conscience. When you go to the hospital and see sick people waiting 10 hours, how do you feel? When you go to take a bus and the bus doesn't come, how do you feel? When you drive on the road and you break your axle because the road isn't repaired, when you see WASA paying $1.5 million a day for salt water, desalinated water, and you see so much leaks, how do you feel? When you see a Prime Minister passing legislation that himself and the President should be paid their full salary for the duration of their lives as pension, but everybody else gets less, how do you feel? I feel sad when I see children fighting that don't have proper education, when I see people suffering, pensioners, when I see the Blind Welfare Association underfunded, PAVI, I don't feel good. I don't feel proud. I don't feel patriotic. And I call on you to say something.
When the refinery was being operated, they earned enough foreign exchange from sales, so that they earned more foreign exchange from the sales of refined products, from fuel, from gasoline and diesel, than it cost them to purchase the crude to put through the refinery. So they were net foreign exchange.
So when people talk about Petrotrin bringing in US dollars, that is a completely false narrative. It was not a net earner of foreign exchange. It was draining the country's reserve.
We were refining other people's oil, buying it at over 100,000 barrels per day, refining it in our refinery, guaranteed to lose between $7 and $15 a barrel.
When the refinery was being operated, they were net foreign exchange.
Dr. Rowley's statements were genuine, then why is there no evidence of any subvention to keep the company afloat in 2016, 17, and 18?
The government is today standing.
Just also remember where we came from, what we came from, what we went through, what we suffered. And in 1995, the UN's slogan was, if you do the crime, you will do the... Remember that? If you do the crime, you will do the time. And that is when we won the 1995 elections. And there we were, the crime went down.
Yes.
Going down, going down. Then what happened? What happened? PNM again. Yes, Anil, PNM again. And the crime started to escalate. Fast forward to 2010, again, what was it? It was crime. We talked about a crime, and the PNM lost the election. So we hardened. This is stick break in your ears. How many times you will do the same thing? So after 2010, come to 2015, what has happened? Crime rises every day. Rudy told us, not one day without a murder. As I'm standing here, the last numbers I saw was 214 murders. We have not even had 214 days in the year. Days in the year. We had an anti-crime meeting last Monday in Morva Lavantin.
Yes.
We got about 200 persons turned up at that anti-crime talk. 200. I thank you, and I want to thank the residents who came out there braving whatever the situation was, because that very day, the night we were going in, there was a murder in the area, that very day. But they came out, about 200 persons, and they talked about the loss of dearly loved family members. In fact, our alderman, who hosted the meeting for us there, Kareem, his wife and his brother-in-law were murdered just a few months ago in that very district. Family members losing loved ones to the gang members, to the criminals. Crimes, losing ongoing battles against government to simply get jobs, to get jobs. You know, I saw an article recently in the newspaper that out of Trinidad and Tobago, 5,000 persons applied to Disney cruise. Remember they were here? 5,000 persons. And you want to tell me people have jobs and don't talk about jobs? I saw Heinz put out some foolishness. Maybe he woke up from his sleep and decided to put out this post talking about, well, you don't have to go to crime if you don't have a job. And nobody's saying that the criminals doesn't have a job and that's why they go to crime. Where you get that from? But it's always to blame somebody else. That is their modus operandi. Anyway, 5,000 persons applied to Disney cruises. You remember when they had a police recruitment up the highway, there was blocked up with people applying for jobs. People want jobs. People want a decent living for themselves and their families.
Yes.
So of these 5,000 persons who applied, only about 80, less than 100 have been hired.
Yes.
Out of 5,000, only about 80. I saw the minister, whether it's tourism or wherever, in the papers boasting that they'll get more for people to work with the cruise liners and so on. But jobs. When we were in office, we created over 51,000 jobs.
Yes.
We did so without a single tax, not one new tax. Please also remember where we came from, what we came from, what we went through, what we suffered. And in 1995, the UNC slogan was, if you do the crime, you will do the... Remember that? If you do the crime, you will do the time. And that is when we won the 1995 elections. And there we were, the crime went down.
Yes.
Going down, going down. Then what happened? What happened? PNM again. Yes, Anil, PNM again.
Ladies and gentlemen, it might very well be that someone of us in this crowd tonight would be the next person to be murdered in Trinidad and Tobago. It might very well be that one of you listening to me right now could be the next person to cease to live in Trinidad and Tobago. That is what we are facing right now, and you had better believe it. We have a problem. And notice I'm not saying that the UNC has a problem, or the PNM has a problem, or the COP has a problem. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a problem. They gave me a list, and it shows that so far, before the end of 2 months in 2013, 70-odd persons have been killed in Trinidad and Tobago. We just can't go on this way. The same way the government has the responsibility for the health sector to make sure that when you get sick and you go there are doctors and nurses there to look after you. And they have a responsibility for the education sector to make sure that when your children go to school, they are taught that 2 and 2 make 4 and that they are educated in the school environment. And the same way that they have a responsibility to protect us from those external forces that would harm us and to make sure that we are protected from all harm, both internal and external. It is the same way that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility to ensure that what I have just described to you is not the condition that should prevail with respect to national security. And the government knows this, you know. The PNM had that responsibility before. And the population was not happy with the level of security. And it became a major electoral issue in 2010. So you know what the government did? This government did what it has always done. Set out to lie to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because the world is watching us, you know. I'm talking here about the opening of the year 2013. 7th of January. Our most serious problem where our very lives are at stake. Let me tell you what the actual situation is as against what Jack Warner told us on the 7th of January. 7th of January 2013, you want to know what happened 2012 and 2011. Let me take a few minutes and tell you. Murders, 2011, 343. 2011, 343. 2012, 378. As a police figure. 33 different areas in this country have experienced murders. Let me tell you what people have been murdered in this country. Barataria, Laventil, Mount Hope, Malabar, Beetham, Caranach, Tobago, Aranguez, Couva, Caparo, Freeport, Belmont, Morvan, Santa Cruz, Woodbrook, Aruca, Londonville, St. Madeleine, Diego Martin, Pinal, Monroe Road, Columbia, Arima, Chaguanas and Cocorit. So the murdering is not a Laventil problem. It's a nationwide catastrophe. Long ago they said crime didn't pay. In the 21st century, crime does pay some people and pay them very well. But at the end of the day, there are 3 areas that you have to focus on as the government to respond to this criminal conduct. One is the social conditions that generate criminal activity and conditions for criminal conduct. And that starts in the home, on the streets, in the communities. And then you have to look at the economy that is required to perform well enough to give you the resources to respond to the social pressures that generate crime. And when you have those 2 understood and working together, you then have proper effective law enforcement based on crime prevention and effective crime detection. But I tell you, 2010 brought about a change. You got a new prime minister, you got a new leader of the opposition. The opposition is now the PNM, and a new government is in office. I said to the prime minister then, we have the opportunity, you and me, the 2 offices we hold, you have the opportunity for us to do things differently. Let us set about to do things differently. Because the country has some problems, where if we do things differently, we in this term at least and going forward should be able to bring some improvement to our circumstances of the country.
Opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley called the crime summit hosted at the Prime Minister's office this evening fruitful. Dr. Rowley stressed that the solutions coming out of the talks require collaboration between the opposition and the government if long-term solutions to the crime problem are to be found.
Collaboration and cooperation, not words you usually hear from the opposition regarding the government. But Dr. Rowley says the issue of crime is too important to play politics with.
We don't want to be the problem. We are speaking for ourselves. We work with the government. We commit ourselves to working with the government on this matter. And you know what our proposals are. Let us see if they make sense, if they find favor, if they are implemented. We are saying that this matter requires urgent action, and we will not put any political impediment in the government's way in treating with the loss of security and loss of opportunities for people in East Port of Spain or anywhere else in this country. We want from the government a commitment to urban renewal, because East Port of Spain is an inner city problem, not peculiar to us here in Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore the solutions shouldn't require us to invent any wheels. There are social problems, there are economic problems, there are family problems, and all these problems require particular responses. There's no silver bullet, there's no one answer.
The opposition leader made it clear that the solution to fighting crime is not just solving the problems in East Port of Spain.
We are looking at dealing with the causative factors and the sustainable responses that could prevent the sporadic arrangements in Port of Spain. And we are not trying to solve the crime problem in the country by trying to solve the East Port of Spain problem. That the executive has in its hands now a requirement to treat with the East Port of Spain local problem. It also has a responsibility, a large responsibility, to treat with crime and criminality in Trinidad.
The teams from the opposition and the government will meet at
In the letter of invitation posted on Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said the invitation for written proposals to treat with crime from opposition leader Kamla Bissassa is in keeping with their mutual desire to put the country's national interest first. The Prime Minister indicated that the government is prepared to share with the opposition its own ideas, programs and policies for inclusion in these discussions. Dr. Rowley said it is envisaged that Mrs. Bissassa's proposal, like the government's, would include tools designed to lawfully confront the criminal elements that are increasingly emboldened as they operate in this country. He has proposed that after receiving her proposal, they establish teams comprising 4 members each from both the government and the opposition to discuss the initiatives proposed. These teams, he said, will be guided by a crafted agenda formed from joint submissions which Dr. Rowley anticipates they could have in hand within the coming fortnight. The opposition leader has publicly stated that she is willing to consult with the government in the interest of the population and that they made a call to discuss the issue earlier this year. The invitation for the opposition's proposal comes 1 week after President Christine Kangaloo called on both sides to collaborate across the aisle to deal with issues like crime during her address at the ceremonial opening of the 4th session of the 12th Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
I intend to write to her and to ask her to supply or to receive personnel from the government on the issue of crime, and the government will receive from her side on the issue of crime, and let us see what common ground exists.
Dr. Rowley said trying to unite with the opposition is not something new, as he has been trying to do so even before he became Prime Minister. I
intend to write to her. Having received a long, I think it was 6 pages from the opposition leader that vented all the politics and all the self-congratulations and all that, I didn't deal with that. Yes, we're going to meet. You wrote 6 pages. We sent back a list of the known and even unknown areas of legislation where the opposition had not been welcoming to our ideas. And of course, we said, we are going to deal in these talks with what you bring and what we bring. But you have to have some order. 8 people for here and for there. And of course, we said the Attorney General would chair. And that seemed to have immediately offended the opposition. How could I dare the Attorney General? And we had 5 people and they have 4. They insist that it must not be the Attorney General because the government will have 5 and they have 4. I didn't know it was a voting process. I thought we were meeting to talk. And 4 members of the government and 4 members of the opposition is a huge part of the Parliament meeting there on a particular issue. And of course, I see it being said that the Prime Minister must lead it. Now, that tells me that I don't want to say that they're not serious. Because if I say that, I'll be guessing they refuse to participate.
So you know the opposition are saying that it's your side that's holding up the discussions, because last time we asked the opposition leader a few days ago what's going on, she said she's still waiting on you to reply to that 6-page, as you mentioned, letter on October 14th that she sent. One of the chief questions was, will you be a part of it?
This is not about me. This is not about me. It's about the government meeting the opposition. They deal with personalities. We deal with institutions.
So when you come to tell me about crime talk, something like, look, I will meet you anywhere, anytime, any place, any day, Rowley. Anywhere, and I'll even take over the pavement from Rudy to and meet you on the pavement as well. We are not afraid of you. We have the plans, we have the policies, we have the programs, we have a track record. And we brought serious crimes down to the lowest in 30 years, man. So read and learn, listen and learn. And I don't understand why he's so reluctant to come out as a head of government, the head of the National Security Council, to discuss the most deadly thing happening in our country now, crime. Why you breaks in? Why you ducking and hiding? Why? Answer us that. And I wrote to you in good faith after I called for these anti-crime talks in April of this year. He refused. You remember that? No way, no. And when the president made a call, and on that same day in Parliament, all of us were there after the sitting, and the media was interviewing, I said, sure. We are willing to meet. If we could save one life, if we could save one person from injury, we will meet.
I intend to write to her. Having received a long, I think it was 6 pages from the opposition leader. Yes, we're going to meet. You wrote 6 pages. We sent back a list, 8 people for him for it. And of course, we said the Attorney General would chair. And that seemed to have immediately offended the opposition. How could I dare the Attorney General? And we had 5 people and they have 4. They insist that it must not be the Attorney General because the government will have 5 and they have 4.
We will find the time and the space and the place. We will meet. And after we all said that, Rowley write me again now. He said, look, this is my team. Set at different conditions from what was previously agreed. First, he had told us, you name 4 and we will name 4. When you write me back now, after I sent all our recommendations, I don't know how many pages, he said, oh God, the letter was too long, first of all. Like the fella can't focus for long now, so he found the letter was too long to read. This is where I had put in all our plans, our policy, some of them for him to see and to come up with an agenda. Then he writes back now, letter too long. I heard him on the TV complain, letter too long. And then he says, listen, you all could send 4 persons. Good, we had agreed. But the government will send how many? 5. See, already lopsided thing. Lopside, flip side, whatever side you want to call it. Just upsided the apple cart and the orange cart too. Okay, 5. Then he said, listen, we will have other stakeholders, but this committee with your 4 people and my 5 people will take a decision whom should be invited as a stakeholder. How is that now? So what you want to create another joint select committee of Parliament? And then he says, only legislation. Well, fella, if you want that, let's go to Parliament. We'll battle you in the Parliament. We'll battle you outside the Parliament. But don't fool the country. Do not fool the country into thinking that the opposition is blocking this. We are willing and able. I say it again. We will meet with you. Why are you sending Limo to meet me? I don't want to meet him. This is a man lied in a court of law in Miami. This is a man who has so many failures. He's disqualified himself. I don't wish to speak to him. What, you want me to put my members through that as well? So you send Limo, and he said some of the worst ministers on that committee, boy. The few fellows he sent from his team. I mean, what can they tell us? How can they help us? And on top of that, when we say we want a stakeholder to come. For example, I'd like to see Gary Griffith as a stakeholder. Man has experience. He was my national security minister for a while, and then he was your commissioner of police. So what's wrong? But then, no, you change it up. You will have 5, I will have 4, and you'll say, no, we don't want Gary. We don't want you. We don't want you. We don't want you. At the end of the day, it's just going to be a talk shop, a PNM talk shop. We will get absolutely nothing done.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility.
You're losing the war against the criminal element. You're losing the war against the criminal element. But you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago has a responsibility.
We're taking the advice from you, the people. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.
Your vote will decide our destiny. Your vote will decide what you want to be. Your vote can foretell our country's fate. Move and use it well before it's too late.
Ladies and gentlemen,
might have a next budget to come in. Might have a next budget to come in.
That might kill them, because if this is causing so much pain and diarrhea, if this is causing so much pain and gastrointestinal distress, what's going to happen in the next budget? What?
Fuel subsidy is not targeted for removal.
I raised the price of fuel by 15%. I then realized that was not enough. I came back again and I raised it, and I raised again by 15%. And I came back again, raised it by another 15%. They haven't rioted yet. So I might raise it by another 15%. They haven't rioted yet. They haven't rioted yet. They haven't rioted yet.
In an article in the Trinidad Guardian in which Imbert said sorry for offensive remarks in 2016, Imbert said, "I unreservedly apologize to all following the finance ministers. Yesterday informed the parliament that there was a conference in TNT last week designed to deal with challenges facing TNT and the economies of the Caribbean, and during that conference I made certain statements, and on reflection and having reviewed and looked at the tapes of the comments I made, and the manner in which I made them, I realized this would have upset a lot of people, and therefore I take this opportunity to unreservedly apologize to all of them." His apology was interrupted twice by loud laughter from the opposition bench. Rowley was absent for Imbert's apology.
Fuel subsidy is not targeted for removal.
I raised the price of fuel by 15%. I then realized that was not enough. I came back again and I raised it, and I raised again by 15%. And I came back again, raised it by another 15%. They haven't rioted yet. So I might raise it by another 15%. They haven't rioted yet. They haven't rioted yet.
Might have a next budget to come. That might kill them, because if this is causing so much pain and diarrhea, if this is causing so much pain and gastrointestinal distress, what's happening in the next budget? What? Might have a next budget to come in. Might kill them, because if this is causing so much pain and diarrhea, if this is causing so much pain and gastrointestinal distress, what's happening in the next budget? What?
Fuel subsidy is not targeted for removal.
I raised the price of fuel by 15%. I then realized that was not enough. I came back again and I raised it, and I raised again by
is already high. Food and fuel prices have more than doubled.
We can't do anything. If you go to the market, whatever you have.
Fourth Republic, the rate of inflation
took a deliberate decision to give Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to grow outside our borders. And one of the places that we looked for this opportunity to grow is in Ghana. We took a deliberate decision to give Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to grow outside our borders. And one of the places that we looked for this opportunity to grow is in Ghana. We took a deliberate decision to give Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to grow outside our borders. And one of the places that we looked for this opportunity to grow is in Ghana.
We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis.
The International Monetary Fund approved on Wednesday a $3 billion loan program to Ghana. The three-year program, which includes an immediate disbursement of about $600 million, provides a lifeline to the country facing its worst economic crisis in a generation.
This is not a Ghana we sign on for. This is not a democracy we know. Our courts have been part of those who are trying to suppress this country. And someday they will bow their heads down in shame.
A sign of larger discontent. Ghana's currency has plummeted against the dollar this past year. That's pushed up the price of imports at a time when inflation is already high. Food and fuel prices have more than doubled.
We can't do anything. If you go to the market, whatever you have, whatever amount you have, you can't buy anything in the market.
For the first time in the history of this Fourth Republic, the rate of inflation is hovering around 27, 28%. That is unprecedented. And that should tell you about the persistent and astronomical hikes in the prices of food especially and other basic commodities. So today the ordinary Ghanaian is struggling to afford 3 square meals a day, not even 2 square meals a day, because we are suffering.
These workers say they haven't been paid in 2 years. They supply food to public schools in Ghana. Now desperate, suppliers are demanding what's owed to them with interest because of inflation.
We just are asking that the due process should be followed and our money should be given to us. Are we asking for too much?
Ghana has signed a new 3-year bailout program with the International Monetary Fund to bring down inflation and fix its economic problems.
Loads of new taxes have been introduced. So the taxes are going to start biting. And altogether, as this coalesce, I think we should start preparing for some unrest on the labor front. It's very possible as they start to realize that their earnings have halved in purchasing power.
Ghana has reached agreement with the International Monetary Fund on terms for a second payment of $600 million out of its $3 billion credit deal. Ghana signed a deal with the IMF in December as the country sought to shore off its public finances and better manage debt. The country's economic situation will be the major election campaign theme as it heads to the ballot box next year, with President Nana Akufo-Addo stepping down from 2 terms.
I traveled with the delegation, or should I say 2 delegations. One first delegation I traveled with to Ghana, as you would have been told before. We took a deliberate decision to give Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to grow outside our borders. And one of the places that we looked for this opportunity to grow is in
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said the government has been blindsided by the Strategic Services Agency, the SSA. Speaking to the media immediately on his return to Trinidad and Tobago from India, Dr. Rowley was asked to share his thoughts on the recent development where Major Roger Best was dismissed from the SSA. That announcement came via a media release from the Ministry of National Security on Saturday evening.
We have been blindsided by this agency, but fortunately the government was able to be informed at an early stage, and we approached it with vigor and commitment. There is an ongoing, very serious investigation that is taking place. And as I said before, some of what has been unearthed in this investigation has been quite troublesome.
Dr. Rowley said he hopes to return the agency to its purpose. As it pertains to a replacement for Major Best, Dr. Rowley said the current acting director of the SSA, Brigadier General retired Anthony Phillips Spencer, is good right now.
When we realized that we had a problem of this nature, the government acted swiftly, and there's an acting appointment there with all the authorities of the office, and for the time being that will be satisfactory as we try to get to the bottom of what was going on in the SSA. I can tell you a lot of what we have discovered is quite troubling, but it being a matter of national security, we will handle it responsibly, and as you would have seen, action has been taken.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley.
Any allegation that the amended public accounts received by the Auditor General on the 16th of April, according to her letter, that those were backdated is patently false. I just want to make sure that I got the first point clear, that I'm saying that any allegation is crystal, right? That we are saying it's patently false. Okay, that any allegation that the amended public accounts received by the Auditor General on the 16th of April, according to her letter, that those were backdated is patently false. That those were backdated is patently false.
The constitutional impasse with respect to the Auditor General's report for the financial year of 2023. And all of this stemmed because there is a missing $3 billion worth of revenue in Trinidad and Tobago. The Auditor General, through her report that we have seen on various networks and news agencies, is that there is a missing $3 billion in revenue. So on the 31st of January, accounts were submitted to the Office of the Auditor General indicating that Trinidad and Tobago revenue for 2023 was about $61 billion. Subsequently, the Auditor General was informed that there were issues with respect to the accounts and that the actual revenue for Trinidad and Tobago would have been $64 billion, which means that there's a $3 billion gap. When the Auditor General audited the accounts after the amended accounts were issued, she still could not find the $3 billion, and therefore that was in fact reported, and that is now a matter of public record. But what is interesting is this, is that the Auditor General has raised a very serious matter with respect to the backdating of the accounts of Trinidad and Tobago, because she had in her possession 2 accounts for Trinidad and Tobago as at the 15th of April 2023. And the both accounts were dated the 31st of January 2024, and I have copies of the both accounts. And these 2 accounts would have reflected various figures, but have the same date. One account was actually delivered to her on the 31st of January 2024 with the revenue figure of $61.8 billion. The other account would have reflected a figure of $64 billion submitted to her after the 31st of January 2024, but was backdated to the 31st of January 2024. Submitted to her after the 31st of January 2024, but was backdated to the 31st of January 2024. Submitted to her after the 31st of January 2024, but was backdated to the 31st of January 2024.
Any allegation that the amended public accounts received by the Auditor General on the 16th of April, according to her letter, that those were backdated is patently false. That those were backdated is patently false.
Acting Prime Minister Com Imbert has been given until 4 p.m. on Wednesday to respond to a pre-action protocol letter sent by the Auditor General's legal team. If Minister Imbert fails to respond, Freedom Chambers will file a claim for judicial review challenging the legality of the investigation announced on May 7th. The investigation, headed by retired Justice David Harris, was set up to investigate the circumstances surrounding the dispute which followed the Auditor General's Public Accounts 2023 report. The letter calls on the minister to cancel or recall the investigation. Ramdas's attorneys say neither the minister nor the cabinet has the constitutional jurisdiction and lawful authority to investigate the action and conduct of the Auditor General. They say it is only the Public Service Commission under Section 121 of the Constitution that has jurisdiction. The letter also states that the risk of bias in the finance minister appointing an investigative team is clear and self-evident. Opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar previously argued that only the Public Service Commission has the authority to investigate the Auditor General. In last week's post-cabinet media briefing, Minister Imbut called her argument nonsense.
It was only on the 16th of April that the amended public accounts were accepted. I had said in the Parliament, look, I don't want to dive too deep into this because, you have one group of public servants saying X, another group saying Y. So the whole purpose of this team that has been appointed and is headed by retired Justice David Harris is to talk to all the public servants involved and see if we could get some clarity on what really happened, basically. Well, nonsense uttered by the leader of the opposition. It's nonsense because in the Senate, I said that I am going to conduct an internal investigation to investigate the facts within the Ministry of Finance. So who is supposed to pick the team? I ask the leader of the opposition to pick the team? It's nonsense.
When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself. When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself.
Influencing young ones to kill a boy now. He ain't no bad man, boy now. He ain't no bad man. A real bad man works for whatever he wants and he don't need no gun. He full of joy now. That is a bad man soldier. He ain't no bad man. So sit down, rock back. Tell them I don't need no strap to defend my people from wicked and evil. So sit down, rock back.
Opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley called the crime summit hosted at the Prime Minister's office this evening fruitful. Dr. Rowley stressed that the solutions coming out of the talks require collaboration between the opposition and the government if long-term solutions to the crime problem are to be found. Jonathan Chase was at the office of the Prime Minister and spoke with Dr. Rowley. Jonathan has this report.
Collaboration and cooperation, not words you usually hear from the opposition regarding the government. But Dr. Rowley says the issue of crime is too important to play politics with.
We don't want to be the problem. We are speaking for ourselves. We work with the government. We commit ourselves to working with the government on this matter. And you know what our proposals are. Let us see if they make sense, if they find favor, if they are implemented. We are saying that this matter requires urgent action, and we will not put any political impediment in the government's way in treating with the loss of security and loss of opportunities for people in East Port of Spain or anywhere else in this country.
Dr. Rowley says that a team each from the opposition and the government would meet next week to thrash out the details of their agreed-upon plan to fight crime nationwide. Whatever the solutions proposed, Dr. Rowley says the opposition is adamant that the big picture be addressed.
We want from the government a commitment to urban renewal, because East Port of Spain is an inner city problem, not peculiar to us here in Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore the solutions shouldn't require us to invent any wheels. There are social problems, there are economic problems, there are family problems, and all these problems require particular responses. There's no silver bullet, there's no one answer.
The opposition leader made it clear that the solution to fighting crime is not just solving the problems in East Port of Spain.
We are looking at dealing with the causative factors and the sustainable responses that could prevent the sporadic arrangements in Port of Spain. And we are not trying to solve the crime problem in the country by trying to solve the East Port of Spain problem. That the executive has in its hands now a requirement to treat with the East Port of Spain local problem. It also has a responsibility, a large responsibility, to treat with crime and criminality in Trinidad.
The teams from the opposition and the government will meet at 3:30 on Thursday, August 29th.
In the letter of invitation posted on Sunday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said the invitation for written proposals to treat with crime from opposition leader Kamla Bissan-Bissessa is in keeping with their mutual desire to put the country's national interest first. The Prime Minister indicated that the government is prepared to share with the opposition its own ideas, programs and policies for inclusion in these discussions. Dr. Rowley said it is envisaged that Mrs. Bissat-Bissessa's proposal, like the government's, would include tools designed to lawfully confront the criminal elements that are increasingly emboldened as they operate in this country. He has proposed that after receiving her proposal, they establish teams comprising 4 members each from both the government and the opposition to discuss the initiatives proposed. These teams, he said, will be guided by a crafted agenda formed from joint submissions which Dr. Rowley anticipates they could have in hand within the coming fortnight. The opposition leader has publicly stated that she is willing to consult with the government in the interest of the population and that they made a call to discuss the issue earlier this year. The invitation for the opposition's proposal comes 1 week after President Christine Kangaloo called on both sides to collaborate across the aisle to deal with issues like crime during her address at the ceremonial opening of the 4th session of the 12th Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley called the crime summit hosted at the Prime Minister's office this evening fruitful. Dr. Rowley stressed that the solutions coming out of the talks require collaboration between the opposition and the government if long-term solutions to the crime problem are to be found. Jonathan Chase was at the office of the Prime Minister and spoke with Dr. Rowley. Jonathan has this report.
Collaboration and cooperation, not words you usually hear from the opposition regarding the government. But Dr. Rowley says the issue of crime is too important to play politics with.
We don't want to be the problem. We are speaking for ourselves. We work with the government. We commit ourselves to working with the government on this matter.
Opposition leader.
When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself. When PM Rowley was in opposition, he said, anytime a government resorts to blaming the opposition for its failure to deliver on their mandate and their responsibilities to the people, it is a clear sign that they have accepted that they have outlived their usefulness. Why hypocritical PM Rowley is not out of office by taking his own advice? Obviously, he even lied to himself.
And listen to you for the week, but we have other persons.
That is why I want to find out.
So thank you for being kind enough that others will have an opportunity.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Lennox.
Good. So I want to, before I make my departure, as compendious as my presentation would have to be, this is a document that was presented a long time ago, but created by the number of institutions. We have what is called the Ad Hoc Committee for the Eradication of Crime in Laventille. We have, of course, the Mova Laventille Improvement Organization. We have the Laventil for Laventilians, and of course, quite a number of other entities that are associated with and concerned with the prophylactic approach to preventing our young people from engaging in crime and criminality. It's the first time and I want to say this just before I make my departure, that it's the first time I see a man, and as a prime minister, who has a golf tournament ostensibly for charity, and then that charity or the resources that come from it is dedicated to, as normal, on the surface of it, one would say, to organization that is doing social work, etc. In other words, some kind of NGO, etc. But in this case, the Prime Minister, the proceeds of that exercise goes to vision and a mission. I have no problem with vision and a mission. My problem is that if you are Prime Minister, then I would have expected the prophylactic approach as opposed to the area where you have to go into prison before you can be rehabilitated. In other words, it's a principal position. I'm simply saying and I'm sure that he would be listening, I would prefer to see that at least that resource is split. Do it, give it to an organization that prevents people from going into prison, and at the same time, you can then put the next part of it to, of course, vision and mission, etc. They're doing wonderful work. I'm not criticizing them. I'm simply saying, as Prime Minister, and given the fact that we have this problem of crime and criminality and our young people gravitating there too, we must understand that the Prime Minister must be the symbol and the exemplar, and by his conduct and actions, especially in this particular instance, as I referred, I thought I should mention that. I'm not going to read it because I realize I have limited time. So this is a document from the American University in Washington, where, of course, they wrote to the then Prime Minister commending, of course, some of the programs that we are doing here. And then, of course, we have another letter from the Prime Minister then, Manning, where I presented a 1,000-page document on Laventil, surveys, developments, projections, etc. And as a consequence of that, a number of things has emerged. What I want to do, the leader of the opposition and the leader of the UNC, I'll give you the flash drive with all of the information, over 1,000 pages, so it was impossible for me to print it, right? So thank you very much once again. We welcome you here. We expect that you're going to be in other parts of the corridor, including the Laventil that you referred to, and certainly East Port of Spain, etc. If there are opportunities to speak again, certainly I will welcome that.
Thank you so much. And I have known you for many years, and you have always been a community activist and hard worker. So let's give a round again to him. And I thank you for the flash drive. We will certainly take it into account and reach back to you if we need any further documentation. So
Mrs. Camilla Pesard Bissessa to the podium of Mova Laventil. Please stand.
A pleasant good night.
Clip of some school children from one of our schools in the West. Young girls behaving in a manner like hyenas in the African jungle.
Parents who breed monsters at home and send these monsters to teachers.
Well, I want to to tell Mrs. Prasad Bissaso tonight, that is none of your goddamn business. Because as long as Sharon is happy with how much I have outside and how much I have inside, Rowley's happy with that. At least what I had outside and what I have inside, they escape and they're alive. Her words are slurred. She's falling down all over the world. In the car, out the car. Nah. No man ain't digging up my bottom like that. Nah. No man ain't digging up my bottom like that. I mean, there's some people who know they're getting on, you know. Kamla Prasad Bissaso and the UNC go and put that bill where the monkey put the nuts. A most vulgar and outrageous radio program was on the airwaves called the Ground Report. You all remember that? In that report, it was the nastiest, dirty. As a matter of fact, what caught my attention was how filthy the program was on our airwaves. And I was asking myself, how could this be permitted on the airwaves of Trinidad and Tobago? Election or no election. And it was all about me and my father and my mother and this, and I had raped this, and I had done that, and the Ground Report. And it was being conducted by known felons. The government is not closing down Petro-Trin. And in case you were just opening your fridge and you didn't hear that when you closed the door, let me repeat it. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is not closing down Petro-Trin. I will tell you, like she loved me, like she loved no other man. And because she knows that I love women, she thinks I love any woman. I have taste. A lawyer who was on the verge of being your attorney general, sucking from the nipple of the panties, with licks in your waist, licks in your face, and licks all over your petty place. And she could jump high, she could jump low. She could drink this, she could drink that. She could back on the dog, because they ignore she jack. Coming with a coattail telling you, vote for Kamla. That is tantamount to hugging up a porcupine to go to bed.
Minister, I'd like to take the conversation to a more social round, the social climate. You look on social media.
It's Christmas time, we should have some drinks then.
Well, perhaps of the non-alcoholic flavor.
Well, that is not